Hey, ladies, welcome back for episode number 7. I am loving this. I'm loving trekking with you all and just bringing you all up to another place of awareness and then just helping you all with everything that's going on in your lives or whatnot. As someone that is indeed walking in purity, I do understand all of the different frustrations, all of the different things that we go through, all of the different hardships of it all. But at the end of the day, it is worth the journey and it is definitely a lot of work. But you are not alone and you are definitely worth the journey and the work that goes into it. So, episode 7 today is going to be about taking matters into my own hands. How many of us have done this? How many times have you done this and tried to do this, and then all of a sudden things happen and you are trying to figure out what the world just happened? I've been there so many different times and I know what it feels like, the difference in frustration, the getting antsy, the feeling like, what the world am I doing this for? What's the real reason? What is the whole um just like what is the whole backdrop to it all. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I know exactly how it feels to be tired of waiting, especially on this journey of purity, especially on this journey of being a virgin and things like that or whatnot. I know exactly how it feels to be so sick and tired of waiting and to have, your sexual desires in the uproar and you thinking that everybody else is just out there having a wonderful time, living their life to the fullest, and we are just sitting here looking crazy and thinking, and missing out or whatnot. So I totally understand. So I get it as a virgin. I get the frustrations. I get how it feels. I get why, we feel like, dude, this ain't gonna work, God. How much longer? I understand it. And I get, like, even as someone, I don't necessarily know personally, of course, but as someone that is celibate, or practicing abstinence or practicing purity, whatever your role may be, someone like that, I do totally get and understand that you know what you're missing out there, or you might have had moments where you truly did enjoy sexual gratification. And because you have had that experience, you feel some days like, this is a little bit harder for you than what you expected and then what you thought it. So I totally understand how you feel or whatnot. And I don't neglect the process for any of us in this particular journey or whatnot. There are differences in the journeys, but at the end of the day, we all have one goal and one desire, and that is to definitely fulfill and that is to definitely please God with our walks. And then that, of course, is to, to try to abstain from marriage or not to be taken advantage of by multiple men or whatever it may be. But I want you all to know that I am definitely rooting and cheering for each of you, and I'm super proud of you. So I totally get what it feels like to be tired of doing this thing the right way, and what it looks and seems like at this particular moment may be no reward. The and we have to start to look at things totally different from a different perspective. Like, to us, it may seem like there is no reward, but the reward is that we don't have an STD, we don't have a baby. We're not currently pregnant. I mean, even if you have a child, that's fine. But if you're someone that don't have any kids yet, you don't have any kids at this particular moment, that's definitely a perk, because guess what? You only got to concern yourself with you. And that's something that I personally enjoy. Me, is that I only have to concern myself with me. I don't necessarily have to, worry about, who gonna pick up my son or daughter from school, or how I'm gonna feed my son or daughter. So there are definitely some rewards that we neglect and that we don't necessarily pay a good amount of attention to, but I wanted to bring some of those to your attention in regards to some things. But what I wanted to talk about is that it's important for us to understand that we have to fight to keep our heart right and to celebrate others when we're in this place of wanting to take matters into our own hands. So, even though we are in a place where we have to fight to keep our heart right, and to celebrate others. That just means that, it's easy to see someone else see someone else's progress, not progress, but their journey in regards to celibacy or abstinence, or even if they wasn't abstinent or celibate at all. So, like, let's just go ahead and let's just give a scenario here, and this is something that we all have seen and experienced or witnessed. I know I definitely have on multiple occasions. However, as I stated, my podcast gonna be 100. Like, we keeping it real. We have serious moments on this podcast, but we have moments, and then we have moments where we just gonna tell the truth about some things. Have you ever noticed, like, even as yourself or whatever, like, you in, say for example, you're in the church and you are going to church, you're doing everything right. You at church 10 days out the week, right? And we ain't even got 10 days in a week, but you there 10 days out the week, and you are there, you're devoted, you're faithful, you're serving, you're doing everything or whatnot. And not only that, you're still a virgin, or you've been celibate for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. And you got your walk right with God or whatnot, and everything seems to be like you are what could be considered an ideal catch. You're pretty, nice shape, you just, you educated, you it's evident that God is using you or whatever it may be, right? And then all of a sudden, there is, and let's be 100% honest, we're already in a place where a lot of us women feel like there is a limited supply of men in the church, right? And so you're doing everything that you know to do so that, God can see you as so that you could please God, and that everything could, finally line up, because you are trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and literally be the Proverbs 31 woman, right? Right. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I ever was a person that used the Proverbs 31 woman as my blueprint. I'm gonna be honest with you. I hear people say that a lot and that they reference to that a lot, but I honestly have never really. I've read the scripture, the chapter quite a few times, but I don't think I've never really tried to actually mimic that particular woman. I know I got a lot going for myself, and there are some really good, amazing things about me. And I know good and well I know how to cook. I could, I can keep a house clean. There are things about me, right, that I know I got. I got my own little businesses starting to lunch and come out now. But that's just because that's just me. I never tried to mirror the Proverbs 30 woman, let alone like really study every intricate detail about that particular woman so that I can say I'm the Proverbs 31 woman. I never did that. So to each his own, to who does that and who is mirroring that and trying to perfect that. I definitely think that that's a wonderful thing. I'm just saying, for me, I've never done that, right? So, but I want to talk about, like, when you have been someone and you have done those things or whatever and really tried to do right in every aspect of your life or whatnot, especially once you really started to focus on your walk with God. So you out here, you doing what you're supposed to do, right? Especially in the church. And then all of a sudden, there is a particular there's a woman or multiple women that you notice that then came into the church after you, and then they may have gotten, may have slept around with some people in the church or whatever, or not even that. It was just, obvious that, or you probably may have known through things that that person may have said, or that this person was fresh off of the streets or anything like that, right? So we're not knocking her past or her journey or anything like that, because like I stated, we all have past that we cringed at, or that things was not done right, or we weren't perfect in a particular area, which is fine. We all have those, right? So that's not the problem, which is her past. But the problem for us sometimes can come in where we notice that we've been doing everything right, and this person still knows dips in and out. She got one foot in the church and then one foot out the church. She may be sleeping with somebody in the church, then again, she not. It may be things like that. But when this woman actually gets engaged by a man, a good man at that, what was deemed as a good man in the church. She gets engaged and white, and she clearly wasn't a virgin. She clearly wasn't celibate for no time. She clearly wasn't practicing purity in no areas. She clearly didn't really know her how God views her, and didn't necessarily take the time to really cultivate a serious good relationship with God. But a good, decent, handsome man in the church sees her, pursues her, and then wipes her. Have you ever saw that happen on multiple occasions and you sitting up there scratching your head like, now I know good and well that I've been doing this and that and that and that and that. And even though I might not have been interested in the guy that pursued and wiped her, it is still the fact or the principle for me that I got all this going on for myself, and yet I'm still the one that's single, and she the one fresh off the streets and then got her whole husband. You ever felt like that? And I'm just being honest. I have. I ain't gonna even lie to y'all. I have. I've been like, come again, you know? So one of the things that I wanted to use this example or whatnot, because, a lot of times God is okay. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I'm just saying that it's a shocker from time to time. And it's mainly a shocker, not just to me personally, but it could be a shocker to other people. You know what I mean? It could be a shocker to others, whereas they feel like, whereas everybody is like, I don't know how that happened. Because here's the reality: people in the church gonna talk. Somebody gonna say something. Somebody gonna say something. But it's not like that we mean it it's said or it's being done in a negative way. It's just like, oh wow, I didn't see that one coming. How did that happen? And it's almost, and of course, when you have people or friends in the church or whatnot that's doing this thing right, you kind of feel like, well, why? How didn't that happen for you? How did that not happen for you, sis? Da 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 da. You know how we can get because we women, right? But my point is that a lot of times when things like that happen, we start to wanting to take matters into our own hands. When situations like that happen, we start to look at ourselves a little bit different, start to second guess ourselves, and start to question, like, well, wait a minute, maybe it's me. Maybe I didn't do something right, or maybe I'm trying to be too perfect. Maybe I'm not even keeping in tune to what it is that men are really looking for. And so when we have things like that or whatnot, we literally have to fight to keep our heart right and to celebrate others. Because one of the things about me personally is that I don't give a care who get married, who get engaged, or whatever. I'm gonna always celebrate and encourage and hope the best for whoever relationship it is, because that's what I'm going to do, right? Because when it's my turn around, I definitely want the same. So I ain't putting out no bad seeds, no negative, nothing. I want everyone to be happy. But at the same time, it does not remove and it does not take away the fact that I may have felt like, wait a minute, I'm 33 years into this thing here. And you mean to tell me, sis with two kids, three sis with two kids over there, or sis over there with four kids with three baby daddies, and got a whole man that's a whole saved man who may not, wait for it, have kids, but decided to pursue a woman with multiple kids. Like, that even in that part, that was a huger smack to me because I've seen that happen on so many occasions as well. But my point is that you in something like this, we have to continue to not look at things from the surface view, but to try to look at it from God's view or whatnot, because it could be that it legit is a God ordained marriage or a God ordained union where God has definitely sent his son for that particular woman. And that's perfectly okay. And that's good. And that's beautiful, because who are we as individuals to be able to say who deserve what? and who should get it at what time. But the reality is that our flesh and our mentality does cause us to feel that type of way at some point in time in our lives. And I'm just honest enough to say it for me that I have definitely felt that way and experienced that or whatnot. And so I had to learn how to fight to keep my heart right and to continue to celebrate others. And one of the things that I learned is that there is nothing wrong with having those natural feelings, but it's only when I try to take matters into my own hands and think that I need to help God that there is evident that there is a serious heart check that needs to be handled and done. So that's one of the first things that I want us to talk about today is these heart checks. And the first question that I want to ask you is, where are you really concerning in your emotional state of singleness? Where are you concerning your emotional state of singleness? Because if you're not okay with being single, every time something wonderful or good happens for another individual, there is going to be that was once single, or yeah, another individual that was once single, there is always going to be something that's going to rise up on the inside of you that thinks that it should have been you, that thinks that you could have handled it better, that thinks that you were more deserving or more worthy. There will always be something like that that will try to rear its head, and you have to be a person that can identify exactly what that is and then put it in its proper place, which means out of your heart, out of your life, out of your emotions, out of your thoughts, out of your mind. And that's something that's definitely always a challenge and that requires a lot of work and substance, but it's something that you're going to have to learn how to master, especially if you're single. So the question of understanding that and being able to master that means, where are you emotionally concerning your state of singleness? Do you hate being single? Do you feel like singleness is a curse? Do you feel like you're single because you're not pretty enough? Do you feel like you're single because God is punishing you? Because as someone that is trying to do things right, especially when you're trying to do it right in the sexual aspect, you will always come up with so many different thought patterns and mentalities and things of that nature that will try to always say something is wrong with me. And you have to realize that it may not necessarily be something that's wrong with you. It may not necessarily be that anything is wrong at all, but it is just a different posture and a contentment of the heart. So we have to make sure that we maintain paying attention to our different heart checks. We need to do a heart check. So on your where are you with your singleness? How do you feel about singleness? For a long time, I actually um, hated being single, but I hated being single because it was like I never had a real boyfriend. And I can say that today. I've never still, till today, have ever had a real boyfriend. Nothing that ever lasted longer than 2 months. Nothing. And so, because of that, I hated being single. I hated every bit of it. I would be feeling like, and I got so used to being single, to be honest with you, to the fact that I never looked for a man. I never expected to get the attention of a man. I never, I was just so used to coming and going to the fact that I did. I looked at it as if I was cursed and that singleness would always be something that I would have to deal with on a regular basis. And so that was extremely frustrating to me at a particular time where I was not okay and content with my singleness. And I did feel like life was extremely unfair in regards to that. But I had to start to look at things totally different. I had to start to look at things from a completely different perspective. And even now, like I've stated, I do have a guy friend that I've gone out with and that I go out with, from time to time. It was really regular at one point in time, and I can't necessarily say that it's not regular now, but we have both of us have life going on and whatnot. But the difference is that he is someone that has always made his intentions extremely clear that he was interested. He would like to be my man. He would like to take me out. He would like to get to know me. And he knows everything in regards to how I feel about not giving out, so not sleeping with him. before marriage. He knows everything that I've said in regards to a man only gets a certain amount of time to pursue me. That, and I will probably talk about that at some point in time, but that is a true fact about me. I only will give if this is a man that I'm interested in and we're both on the same page where we're interested in each other. You only get 1 year to make a decision if you want to marry me. That's my rule. To other people, oh, you need more than 1 year, you need two, you need three, you need four. No, you don't. I don't. I don't. Because for one, I'm 33 years old. You don't get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years to decide if you're going to wife me. I'm not going to give a man that much time. If he don't make his mind up in 1 year, I move on. And whatever was going on here is no longer existent. That's just how it's going to be for me. That's my own personal standard. But I created that standard because I now know who I am. I have a better understanding of where my life is going and what it is that I'm going to do in regards to what it is that God called me. So I'm not going to waste my time with a man that's still undecided. And my life is still needing to progress, and I need the right man with me that knows how to make solid and sound decisions. Now, my point is that even with this particular guy, if I wanted, he was okay with that. He was okay with that. But I know that he's not the guy for my future. And we have had these conversations on the regular, and they are absolutely hilarious because he always has to say things like that to me, like, you done told me that I ain't the man from you. You done told me I have to hear his rants and junk like that. But he still hang around because we established a very good friendship with each other. And that's important. But if I wanted to, this is an example of how I've gotten okay with my singleness versus where I was years ago, especially because of my singleness or whatnot. If I just wanted to have a man, if I just wanted to say, I'm finally in a relationship, I finally got somebody, I'm going to just run this thing, and he actually wants to marry me, and da 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 da. If I wanted to do that, I could have done that with him. But yeah, and he's a handsome little guy. He's handsome and I mean, and highly intelligent, which is attractive. Knows how to work stocks, bonds, investments. He has put me on with some of that stuff and helped me out or whatever. Sounds amazing, right? But there are other things at the foundation that is like absolutely not. And we have talked about those things. But at the end of the day, me and him are still very good friends. I could bounce a business idea off of him. I could talk to him about this podcast and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing a Purity is Precious podcast. And he's like, okay, I think that's a great idea. Da 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 da. And we bounce information up off of each other. But my point is that I had to get to a place where I was okay with my emotional state of singleness so that I don't make um, rash decisions. So we're talking about heart checks, making sure that you're okay internally so that you can when it comes down for you to make lifelong decisions, you make them properly, you make them right, you make them in the right state of mind. And so another thing that we have to look at, even in regards to heart checks, is that you have to pay attention to see if you harden your heart towards God concerning what you believe to be your overextended state on singleness. There have been many a days where I felt like I have definitely overextended my stay, or that my stay has been overextended in singleness. There have been many a days where I was like, oh no, the first dude that comes around, I'm gonna definitely give him a shot. I don't give a care if he's not cute or whatever it is, because I'm tired of being single and some man is better than no man. You know, I hate that with women. I hate that part that women reach a place like that in their life where it's more so like they just happy to have a man or have a piece of a man just to be able to say that they have someone or just to have someone to spend time with. That in itself is such a desperate posture to have that you have to be careful not to be someone that just will settle at the first thing that comes around or whatnot that gives you attention. Because when I did that back in the past, that thing costed me a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and a lot of abuse. And I'm just being honest, it did. And, it's something that I'll go into at a later date. But it really did cause me a lot of heartache and pain and abuse because I was so broken and so uncertain. And I was so sick and tired of being single and not feeling like I was pretty and not feeling like I was good enough and not feeling like I would ever have a man, that I just decided that the first thing that comes along, I'm just going to go ahead and settle for it because this is as good as it's going to get. That meant that I hardened my heart towards God concerning what I believe to be my overextended stay on singleness. I hardened my heart at God because I felt like God didn't create me well enough. I felt like God was punishing me. I felt like God was just not necessarily trying to give me the desires of my heart. I felt like God wasn't being, supportive or on my team or on my side. And that was something that I had to be careful with. I had to learn that that was something that was I created in my mind and not necessarily something that God created, not necessarily God's thoughts towards me. And so, and even in that, another thing when we're dealing with heart checks is that we have to pay attention to see if we've been wounded in a previous relationship and that you decided that that would never happen to me again, so that way you decided to guard yourself from any and everyone. When you are a person that has been wounded and hurted in relationships, and whether they're sexual relationships or not, and just friendships and just certain different environments or whatever it may be. Um, and when I say environments, I mean the church or whatnot. I'm just basically specifying that you have to be okay and not necessarily put up all these different guards to where you decide to guard yourself from any and everyone. You decide that that situation or that experience will never happen again. So you put up all these different borders and all of these different gates around your heart where you make it hard for anyone to be able to get in to help you, to heal you, to help bring you to a place of healing and wholeness within. So that's one of my things, one of my concerns. Like when we're looking at the heart and doing heart checks, because remember, that's what we started off communicating about is different heart checks or whatnot. When we feel like we need to take matters into our own hands, when you reach that place, you have to make sure that you are making sure that you are not guarding yourself from people and from anyone that can help bring you to another place and to another level, that can bring you to a place of feeling like you are of wholeness within your singleness, of wholeness within being on an extended stay of singleness. There are people that are 100% content. And then there are people who I know personally who can't go a year without a man. And I be sitting back looking at them like, girl, you can't go a year without a man. Try 33 years. I just can't and then and they probably can't even phantom that I haven't had a man in years or ever had a man. And yet there are women that I know that have not had a man. They have had a man ever since they were 15. And I'm like, so your mama let you have a boyfriend at the age of 15? Because my mama wouldn't go. And now here I am, super grown, and I still can't get one. Or I still ain't found one. But it's like, it don't necessarily jack me up because it's something that I'm used to. And it's something that I'm okay with. And it's something that, whenever God says so, then that's that. God said so. But I'm not going to lose sleep or, flip out and just tag myself to any random or to the first thing that comes. And me with my guy friend is proof of that. I've been knew how he felt about me in the very beginning. But no, this is not going to work. I like you as a friend, but I know that you won't be any good for my future. So the next thing that I want to talk to you all about is making sure that you don't get ahead of God. Don't get ahead of God, because when we take matters into our own hands, we tend to try to rush. We tend to try to feel like we need to help God because God ain't moving fast enough. God ain't trying to give me this. God don't hear me. God ain't doing this. God. I'm tired of waiting on God. That is a real place to be in. Trust me, I know. I've been there. I've been tired of waiting on God. I've been tired of trying to ask God to send this man. I've been tired of trying to whatever. Keep myself. I've been tired. I get it. I understand. I know the frustrations of it all. But one of the things that I want you to ensure is that you do not get ahead of God. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? That means not consulting with God first because you know He will respond the way you desire. He will not respond the way you desire Him to. So we kind of know what God is thinking or how God feels about a certain thing, but we decide that we ain't gonna even take in consideration God's views and His points and His rules and His regulations and His boundaries that He has set up for us. So because we don't want to take in consideration any of those things, we decided we're not even gonna bring it up to God. We're just gonna go and do what we want to do. That's us making a decision that we're going to just go ahead and do what we want to do and get ahead of God and not take him with us and not allow him to be a part of this place with us, a part of this decision, a part of this singleness. We have to stop doing that. We just have to. And as hard as it may be, it's the truth. We have to stop doing it because we are not the ones that is to control our destiny and our futures. We are to give those things to God and allow for Him to pave the way, allow for Him to direct us and to hold our hands. So we cannot get to a place where we decide we're not going to consult with God no more. I've been there, I've done it. And then we don't want to get ahead of God by trying to make God's plan for your life line up with your dreams. I've been in that position where I was trying to um, create my own kind of dream life, right? And this is a sidebar, but for those of you that live in fantasy worlds, you might want to come up out of those worlds because I know exactly what it feels like to live in a fantasy world and what it looks like to create a whole family in your head with the kids, with the fine man, with the 12-inch penis. I get it. I know. With the nice whip to it as well. I know what that feels like to create those type of mentalities and those type of fantasy worlds in your head because you're hoping that you meditating and thinking on such a thing will manifest itself physically. And so you try to make God's plan for your life line up with your dreams. That can even, I just gave you like I said, that was a sidebar because I gave you like a mentality thing where we create these families and we create this marriage with a certain particular guy in our head and the whole nine or whatnot. And I know what that feels like to do that and how it can be extremely detrimental and extremely hurtful and extremely humiliating to do such a thing. So I don't do that any longer. And I want you to be careful with doing that, not to do that either. So you want to so we have to make sure that even in that, when we're trying to create this type of trying to make God's plan for our life line up with our dreams, that means that you're creating the type of man in your head and the kids and the whole image or whatnot. That means that you're trying to say, okay, God, this is the career that I want for my life, and this is what I want it to look like for my life. And anything outside of that, you guys to go on somewhere because that's not going to work for me. That means that you're saying, these are the only type of friends that I want to have. And if my friends don't look like this, I know women, y'all, that say stupid. I don't want. Yeah, they say stupid stuff. They have literally said, I don't hang out with nobody that's ugly. I don't hang out with no females that's ugly. What type of crap is that? It is not your place to even decide whether or not another person is even is pleasurable to look at. It is not your place to take that type of a stand to act like you are even the most top notch, best looking person, as if you cannot be friendly to people that may not be as pleasant looking to you. I don't like stuff like that. And baby, bad, when I hear women talk like that, I be like, child, you ain't got the slightest clue. One of the things that you won't hear me say about no female is that she is ugly. I don't do that. I don't speak down upon another woman. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. But my point is that you're trying to make your trying to make God's plan for your life fit in with your dreams. So therefore, if this girl ain't pretty, you can't have her in your friendship zone, or you know what I mean. And she might be the one that can help take your business to the top notch or to the next level, whatever, and could be a friend for you for years, for the long run. And if you the pretty one, why can't you help her get up some? Why you can't help her, know how to groom a little bit better, beat the face right? Why you can't help her with that? Like, it's just things like that. But this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about too. Is like um, when we're dealing with what is it? When we're dealing in regards to trying to make God's plans fit the plan that we have for our lives. Remember, I was talking to you all earlier, and I was saying I wanted to be this professional dancer or whatnot, where I just traveled the world and I danced and I did my thing, and that was that, right? I wanted to be the person that was able to do that, to travel the world and dance. And even though that was part of my dream and that's still part of my dream, who's to say that that won't necessarily manifest itself for me? Who's to say that part of that won't eventually be a part of what Purity is Precious will eventually branch off to do? There is so much that I can possibly do with this brand, even in regards to the teens, to the youth, to the adults, or whatnot. I could probably launch a dance class, a dance course. It's so much that I can do, but I just have to make sure that I'm in alignment with whatever it is that God has called me to do for my particular purpose. And so when we are not in a good place and we're trying to get ahead of God, we run the risk of us trying to make God's plan for our life line up with our dreams. I do know that God has given me the gift to dance prophetically. I don't neglect that, not one bit. However, that don't mean that that will never happen where I'm able to dance at the fullness or at the capacity that I know I'm capable of doing. That is not what that means at all. It just means that right now we put that on the back burner. And then once the doors open up with the proper ways for it to happen, then God will allow for it to do that. But I just have to remain in the plan of God. So do not get to a place where you like, all right, God, whatever, you taking too long. I don't trust your plan. So I'm going to do what my original dreams were. That will be very costly if you don't necessarily allow for yourself to be, careful with that. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is like um, feeling as though you want it right now and you refuse to wait any longer. That's how we get when we want to get ahead, when we get ahead of God. We decide, like, you know what, whatever, I'm over it, I'm over you. I am not going to deny myself any longer. So I'm going to go ahead and do whatever it is that I want to do, when I want to do it, if I want to do it, how I want to do it. And that is dangerous. That's us getting ahead of God. And then all of a sudden, once something happens, or things fall through, or things fall apart, then we're going to be looking crazy. And at the end of the day, we don't need to be looking crazy. We need to still be looking like we are women that have great intellect, women that are poised, women that are full of posture and etiquette, women that make sound and wise decisions, women that are um, powerful and full of authority. You want to make sure that you remain in that place and that you are sober in every area of your life. Because if you are not sober, you're going to run the risk of getting ahead of God because you think or you feel like God is not moving fast enough and he don't know what he doing. That is not our place to make that decision. That is not our place to make that call. And that is definitely not a posture that our heart should be turned in or positioned in. So the next thing I want to talk about taking matters into my own hands is the timing. You want to be careful with the timing. Get rid of the fear of certain time clocks expiring in your life, bearing children, marrying before 30 or 40, wanting special family members to witness your big day, or whatever it is. Get rid of the fear of certain time clocks expiring. Now, I can honestly say this. I used to say all the time, like, I better be married before I'm 30. And here I am, 33, with still no real prospect in sight. Heck, I was being nice even with that. I ain't got no prospect in sight. I don't want to say with no real, I don't have a prospect in sight at all. And I was hoping that I would have been married with 30, because in my mindset, if I was married at 30, by the time, well, I wanted to be married before 30. So my ideal age to be married would have been 27 by the time I turned 32, because I wanted 5 years under my belt of marriage. By the time I turned 32, I wanted to be ready to have my first child. And before I turned 37, another 5 year gap, I was hoping that all my kids would be here. And or at least before 40. I wanted all of my children here. 2 years gaps in between of each of them. And I actually wanted a set of twins or two so that I could get it out the way, get all the kids out the way in a pregnancy or two. But that has not happened. I'm 33 years old and I'm still don't have a prospect in sight. And one thing that's for certain, I'm not getting married and I'm not having no kids right away because I'm going to enjoy having sex for a while. That's just going to be the reality of it. So I'm looking probably not having a kid or two until my 40s. But that's just my reality. It's different for everybody else, and I can't do anything about it. So I just have to move with it. I have to be okay with it. So I have to trust God's time. And He knows this time clock stuff. He knows that it is my desire to have children. He knows that, He understands all of the different stuff that the world says in regards to doctors and high risk pregnancies and all of that stuff. He gets it. But I just trust that God will, be present in every way because He is definitely omnipresent. He will make things happen in its right timing. We just have to trust that God's timing is best. Um, and be careful with the statements that you make concerning timing. One of the statements that I used to make, I used to say, "Well, God is in heaven where there is no time, so He's not aware of my time frame here on earth." So that's basically saying the God of all, the Creator of all things, the Creator of the universe, of the stars, the moon. That's like saying that He is still oblivious to what's really happening here on planet Earth. When I had that type of demeanor and that type of posture, and I was thinking like that, saying that, well, God, you up in heaven. Ain't no time up there. I'm down here on earth. That was like saying He is disconnected from the reality of what's happening here on earth with me, with my personal life, with my life. And that's not true. God is never disconnected. God is never oblivious. God is never unattuned to what's happening with us. He is always aware of everything. We just have to be in a place where we recognize that, you know, He has a perfect plan and a perfect will for our lives. And regardless of what it looks like to us, regardless of how long it's taken, we have to display patience and not take matters into our own hands. So, I want to talk to you all about how to surrender, taking the matters into your own hands, because that's important. I talk throughout a lot of my podcasts about the word surrender. That's one thing you're going to hear me talk about, because surrender is such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful posture. It's such a powerful statement that you can make mentally as well as emotionally. But one of the things that you have to do is to surrender it all. Surrender the need to be in control of your future. Just surrender that. You don't need to control your future. You just need to trust God with it. Develop a trust in God for your process. Trust that God will not lead you astray. Trust that God will be with you every step of the way. So develop that trust. Allow yourself to feel the frustrations and the disappointments and move on. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be disappointed that certain time frames that you might have had for yourself has not been met, but you don't dwell there. You don't stay in that place. You have to pull yourself together, move on from it, surrender that to God, and trust that God will restore any time that you feel has been lost. Become comfortable with voicing your truth concerning this in a safe place. It is okay to get a mentor. It is okay to get a good friend. It is okay to have people that you can talk to, that you can say, hey, I feel this way about this. I feel this way about God's timing. I feel this way about taking matters into my own hands. I feel this way about my heart checks. I feel this type of way. Become comfortable with voicing your truth concerning this in a safe place, because a safe place is going to hear you out, understand where you're coming from, correct what needs to be corrected, and then affirm you. And the last point that I want to make is to stop thinking and confessing you are behind schedule. I did this so much, y'all. Like straight up, it was like part of my verbiage. I used to be like, I got to get this going because I'm behind schedule. I got to get this new, I got to do this because I'm behind schedule. All my podcasts should have been launched last month, because here's the reality. I was supposed to launch my podcast in what I wanted to do. It was in October, but God had been talking to me about this podcast since the beginning of this year in 2020, and I just blew it off. Then once I finally started to get it together and do it, I was like, oh, I'm behind schedule. I should have had it launched by this date. I should have had it launched by that date. But not just, I'm using the podcast as an example, but feeling behind schedule in your relationships with a man. I'm 33 years old and I never had a real boyfriend. And yet I could feel like I'm behind schedule even with that. Feeling like you're behind schedule because you didn't get married in your 20s and everybody else younger than you is getting wifed and engaged and everything else. Feeling like you're behind schedule because you didn't have the kids already. Feeling like you're behind schedule because you don't have the business that's up and running like how you hoped and dreamed and prayed for. You're comparing yourself to someone else's lifestyle or someone else's journey. That's the only way you get antsy like that. And there literally is no way for you to feel like that, because God takes care of all things. You are okay. You are safe. You are kept. You are protected in him. So know that and be okay with that. And that's all I have to say about that. Don't get to a place where you feel like you are behind schedule. Stop thinking that, stop confessing that, and stop believing that. Sis, you are right on time. So that closes us out for this one. Taking matters into your own hands. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at precious_30, precious_joy30. And then you can also follow me at Instagram at purity is precious. I will see you all next week. And I love and I hope that you all have a wonderful, prosperous week. Talk to you all later. Have a nice day.